Just a heads up, both of you are marked absent as parent contact. I can't take that off, so if that bugs you, you'll have to tell somebody in the office today that you were here. It doesn't matter too much, I guess, because it shouldn't impact your exemptions or anything since it's excused, but... this week is an A week, yes.
So our test is Friday.
Yes, ma'am. By my standards or by your standards?
By your standards, I guess.
I don't know. I've been pretty busy lately. I started playing Elden Ring a couple weeks ago.
That sounds cool.
But I've never played through it like a Souls game before, all the way through. So there's a lot of like little stuff that is probably other people probably just know and I don't. So I'm kind of learning on the fly.
Okay.
Have you ever played that one?
Yeah, I beat the game. Elden Ring is a kind of good first Souls game, but for me, my first Souls game was Dark Souls 3. And that basically taught me like the basics of what a Souls game is.
Just stuff like if you die, you have to go and get your runes back before you die again. Like stuff like that I didn't know, so I figured that out as I go along.
Yeah.
That's about it.
What I like about it is like the art of like whenever you're fighting a boss, it's the art of the time limit and knowing how to do it.
Well, I don't know if I enjoy that part, but I guess it's fun when you beat them.
Yeah.
Gavin.
So I have one pixel that I'd like to use.
Okay guys, I think our bells are still turned off here, but it is time to get started. So last class I gave you handout 83. That was the pretty thick review, several pages, and you had the majority of last class to work through that. So you should have a good idea of which question types you are most concerned about for your test. Our test is next class. This is really considered your second review day, since last class was basically just working on the review. So I need you to start looking through that and tell me what it is you would like me to review you on. And then I would like that to be turned into Google Classroom. And then of course I would recommend to you that you start studying a little bit. Last year, I mentioned this a few times, but last year the test average wasn't bad, but it was the lowest one of the semester. So I only give you that information so that you don't try to coast, or if you do, it might end up being lower than you were anticipating. So, and then finally, quick little reminder: we've only had one major assessment since like mid-December or something. And late work and complete work policy is still the same. If you have anything that you have not done, it needs to be fully completed and turned in before we start the test on Friday. Or if there was anything you did that got half credit because it wasn't completed, you can go back and complete it, and you can get half of the points you had originally lost. Okay, so before I start taking questions here, again, I just want to kind of talk about the outline of the review. At least the first and the last part. So the very first part, I just kind of typed up some of the major topics. So as you read through those, all of those things should sound familiar to you, kind of like a checklist of, I know I can do this, I know I can do this, I can do this, I'm not sure if I can do that. And if it's listed there, then that would be, make sure you look it up and get it cleared up. Additionally, girls, now's not the time. Mia, please stop. I'm trying to talk. At the end of the review, I've got a lot of extra practice. This is optional, but if there's something that you know you need extra practice on, then that is as convenient as I can make it for you to find. So let's try to stay in order, please. So looking at page 1, I think it's just questions 1 and 2. Is there anything from questions 1 or 2 you would like me to discuss and talk about again? All right, then page 2 is probably the most dense as far as different question types. So again, this is not meant to be a ton of practice. It's not, here's a question type, practice it 20 times, here's a different question type, practice it 20 times. It's really about one of each. So when there's a question you don't recognize, or you struggled with, or you needed to use your notes, that's your red flag of it's probably going to be on the test, and you probably need to make sure you try it again and review that. So questions 3 through 14, which of these would you like me to discuss? Yeah. It'll be in the basket over there where it says pre-cal handouts. Number what? 10. Number 10. Okay, so the limit as x approaches 4. Now, as you may have seen on the agenda page, this will be no calculator, so you cannot depend upon just graphing this and looking at the graph for your answer. That's fine for some questions, like question 1 and 2, but we'll just provide you the graph if that's what we're going to do. So for these question types, you should start off with direct substitution. If you get an answer, a real number answer, great. That you can circle it and move on. But if you get 0 over 0, this is what we had practiced almost 2 weeks worth of stuff here. You got to make this look different with algebra, and it just depends on the question here. But this one, you could factor out a GCF. You could factor the difference of two squares. And all of these questions, you needed something to cancel before direct substitution would work out. So now if I plug in 4 to what's left over, I get 16 over 8, which reduces to 2. And as long as you're not getting 0 over 0, you can assume that that's your answer. If you got 0 over 0 still, then you still need to do more work. So there was like 4 or 5 ways we talked about dealing with 0 over 0. Factoring like this is the most common type. Most common in calculus. So I can almost guarantee, I say almost because I haven't seen the test, but short of that, I would guarantee that question type will be on your test. Maybe even more than once. The factoring is the most common question type. Okay, is that enough for number 10? Okay. All right, others, 3 through 14.
You get 12.
12. All right, 12 is a good one. So again, same idea, same start, same end as the question I just talked about. If I plugged in 2 into this, I would get 3/4 minus 3/4 over 2 minus 2. So this is 0 over 0. But factoring doesn't help here. There's nothing to factor. So for this question, I would need you to simplify this complex fraction. So multiply everything by 4 to make these cancel out, and multiply everything by x squared to make those cancel out. Same way we dealt with complex fractions within the difference quotient. And what's left over is 3 times 4 minus 3x squared over 4x squared x minus 2. Now, nothing has really canceled out from the numerator to the denominator, so I suspect this is still 0 over 0, but you can always try. If I plug in 2, I still get 0 over 0, which is my clue. I've got to do something else here. Okay, and for this one, I'm going to say let's try to factor this. We could factor out a 3 GCF, and we could factor the difference of two squares. Now something is pretty close to canceling. I really want to cancel these two, but they have the exact opposite signs. Positive 2, negative x, negative 2. If they have the exact opposite signs, just factor a negative out of one of them, then those match up, and now that something has canceled like that, now direct substitution should work in the end. You get negative 3 times 4 over 16, so negative 3/4. Bless you. Okay, so that one was a little bit longer. Is there something more specific about 12 that anybody would like to ask? Just make sure that you know how to deal with the complex fraction, because after that, it's similar to other questions. It's kind of similar to this one after you get it out of complex fraction. And again, you need to be able to do complex fractions for 2 different problems for us: limits and difference quotient. Both of those show up on this unit. Okay, I'm going to move on to the 3rd page, but if I'm moving on too quickly, I will give a chance at the end to give you another chance. So page 3 was 15 through 22. Any of that you struggled with that you would like a reminder on? Okay, sounds like that's a no. Then next page was next to last page, 23 through 26. Any of that you would like me to do a quick reteach on? You say 23? 24? Check real fast. Okay, use the graph of h to answer all parts of 24 here. So what value of x is discontinuous? Same way to say not continuous, bless you. So that would be, I can just glance real quick and see that is at x equals 0. There's a break in the graph at x equals 0. What type of discontinuity is it? So you need to know what jump discontinuity looks like, you need to know what infinite discontinuity looks like, and you need to know what removable discontinuity is. Jump is when your whole function is jumping, like this one. It's jumping down. Whereas infinite would be where it goes to infinity and negative infinity, hence the name infinite discontinuity. And if it was just a whole, that's what we call removable. Removable is the one that is probably most likely to be forgotten because its name doesn't give you a hint. Okay, if I was asked to explain or justify or prove how I know it's not continuous at x equals 0, you can't just say because it's not connected. You have to use the three-part definition of continuity. So if I was proving that yes, this is continuous, I would need to state all three parts. To prove it's not continuous, I just need to state any part that I know is messed up. So I would probably use the limit one. The limit as x approaches 0 from the left is 5, and the limit as x approaches 0 from the right is -5, and those are not the same thing. That's one part of the continuity definition that has to be true. So just pointing out that that's not true is enough to prove that it is not continuous there. Again, you don't want to try to use words, don't try to rationalize it. Memorize the three-part definition and just state any part that you think's messed up. Okay, however, it is continuous at x equals 4. So again, to prove it's continuous, you have to state all three things that have to be true. At x equals 4, the limit from the left, actually this is supposed to be h. The limit from the left is the same as the limit from the right. There is a point at x equals 4, and the point at 4, which is 0, is equal to the limit as x approaches 4, which is also 0. To prove it's continuous, you have to state all three things. And again, if you don't memorize those three parts, I know part of your review just asked you to state them. If you don't memorize those three parts, it's going to be hard because you're basically going to be trying to derive mathematically what it means to be continuous, which is way harder than just memorizing the three parts. Okay, anything more specific about 24? Okay, others on this page, 23, 25, or 26? Okay, then on to the last page, the other two difference quotient type problems, 27 or 28. Either one of those you would like me to talk about again? Okay, then one more chance. I said if I went too quickly over any page, I'd give you one more time to ask. So anything from any page that you would like some help on before we take our test next class. Okay, well, that's all I've got for you then. But while this is fresh in your head, I really suggest please circle the questions you find to be the hardest. Circle the questions you know you need a little bit of a hint on, or you ask for a clue from your neighbor or something like that. Those are the things that you need to study. all of this stuff would be fair game. And it's a lot of little things. Again, we spend a lot of time on it. We try not to give you too much information in one day, but it all builds up to this point. So if there was some of this you didn't learn in your long-term memory the first time, or maybe you were absent one day and you didn't put in the work to get caught up correctly, then now's the time to make sure that that is all correct. So I'm going to put the agenda up for a second to remind you that I do need this turned in to give you points. You might also check Google Classroom or your grade viewer online to make sure you don't have any missing work or incomplete work from this unit that you could get some more points on if you do it before Friday. And as you guys look that stuff over today in class, if there's any of this that you decide you do need to ask about, you still have some time here. So, of course, I'll still be happy to help you while you guys are here. And last thing, I think I shared this with y'all last time. Actually, no, I did. But if you did not take a picture of today's schedule and you feel like you need to know the exact time and dates, I will leave today's testing schedule up for a few minutes. Again, you really should be able to just leave when the bell rings and get to your next class in 5 minutes as normal, but if that's important to you, I'll leave that up. But that's the last thing I've got for you guys, so unless you do find something else I can help with, you are free to use this time to study or work on something for another class.